to thank the Women in Propane Council for providing 2 of the seminars today. Jill Hopkins was on at 11 o'clock as our featured speaker. I see some faces that were there. It was an outstanding presentation, and we really appreciate it. Kelly Bosak and Sarah Knight are here today, and I think they're an example of what the Women in Propane Council is trying to do, which is to provide some networking opportunities, but also hands-on training, and not just for their membership, but for everybody. And I think that you're all going to enjoy this tremendously, and we have some of our own folks here today participating in this, and we're glad to see you. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. They can do a much better job of it than I can. So Kelly and Sarah, go to it.
All right.
Thank you, Ray.
I will go first. All right, so this is Kelly Bosak, and Kelly is the Director of Training, Staffing, and HRIS at Ferrellgas. In her 12 years at Ferrellgas, Kelly has received the Chairman's Leadership Award, the Humanitarian Award, and Employee of the Quarter Award. She's also received Kansas City's Ingram's Magazine named Kelly to the 2012 class of 40 under 40. When it comes to customer service, Kelly believes in the golden rule. Kelly Bosak.
And I have the tremendous honor of introducing you to Sarah Knight. She is the Manager of Customer Service Implementation at Ferrellgas. She's been in the Ferrellgas family for 10.5 years. Her passion for creating the most memorable customer experience is what motivates her every day and inspiring others to do the same. One of the quotes she lives by is, "We see our customers as invited guests to our party, and we are the hosts." It's our job every day to make every important aspect of the customer experience a little bit better. Sarah Knight.
So to get things started today, I keep forgetting I don't have a mic. So to get things started today, we are going to take you through and show you how to unleash the power to create a competitive advantage. I'm going to do a little introduction, and then Kelly's going to go over some housekeeping items to kind of explain what you have on your chair. So the question that we're going to come back to throughout this workshop is, where are you in the race for the competitive advantage in terms of creating an excellent customer experience? Where do you fall? Are you at the back of the pack? Are you kind of hanging out in the middle? Are you the person that's in the yellow that's up at the top? Hopefully by the end, we are going to be able to share with you some tips and tricks and tools to get you to be the yellow one at the front of the race. So before we get started, we have a little statistic to share with you. This is from the 2013 Customer Experience Impact Report. Sounds very fancy. And it is. And the first number I want to show you up here is 86%. 86%. So you might be thinking in your mind, what does that mean? 86% of buyers are going to pay more for a better customer experience. 86% of the folks that are buying what you're selling are willing to pay more money for a great customer experience. Sounds exciting, right? That's pretty powerful stuff. This number is not as high. 1%. 1% of customers feel that vendors are consistently meeting their expectations. Only 1%. So 86% of them are willing to pay more for a great customer experience, but only 1% feel like they're getting it on a consistent basis. So our goal today with you is to share with you some tips and tools, like I mentioned, in 4 key areas to help us get to be the person that was the yellow, win in the race. And those 4 key areas are making a great and lasting impression, greeting to engage, asking questions to understand the needs of your customers, and also service selling, working on instilling value in your product or your service. So by the end of it, we hope that you walk away with some items so you are in that 1% that's meeting customers' expectations and hopefully exceeding them. because that's the ultimate goal when it comes to customer experience. Not just meeting them, it's exceeding them. And then as a customer service industry, increasing that 1%. We got to get better as a customer service industry, and 1% is not good. So we're going to work on making it better. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Kelly, and she's going to go through some housekeeping things with you real quick.
A few housekeeping items before we get started. In your hands or on your chair, you found a workbook. It is just that, a workbook. Pay attention, because you'll have to capture words to fill in the blanks. So make sure you have a pen and your workbook and you're following along. Secondly, we need your participation. This is meant to be interactive. We're going to ask you questions and we expect you to participate. If you choose to participate, you might get a Smartie thrown at you. And for those of you that like to participate, your goal is to collect as many Smartie packages as you can. And if you have the most at the end, we'll let you stand up and we'll recognize you for being a Smartie Pant today. And lastly, you're going to get to know your neighbor. So go ahead and turn to them right now and say good afternoon. Okay, it's time to get started. In your workbooks, go ahead and turn to page 3. The first concept we're going to talk about is making a great and lasting impression. And the impression we're talking about is the first impression. Before we jump into talk about impressions, I want to just throw some more statistics your way. On the table on page 3, I want you to take a guess at the percentage of time a customer leaves for the reasons you see listed there. So for example, what percentage of customers leave because they move away or because of a competitive price? Go and take a minute to capture your guess at the percentage of time customers leave for each of those reasons. All right, let's talk about the actual numbers. Death is 1%. 1% of customers leave a company because of death. 2% leave because they move. 2% leave a company because they move away. 4% leave because they have a relationship with another company or a salesperson at that company. 11% leave because of a competitive price. 11% leave because of a competitive price. 14% leave because of dissatisfaction with the product that company provides. And 68% leave because of an indifference expressed towards the customer by one or more than one person at that company. So this survey further illustrates the point to Sarah's 1% are providing the needs to their customers today in the customer service world. There's good news though. You're all here to learn some tips, and you are the people that can help the customers. Companies don't help customers, people do. And it's up to you to help make an impact on the bottom line of your company through the service you provide to your customers. The golden rule, I think, is the best one to follow when it comes to customer service, and that is simply treating others as you want to be treated. We all know how we want to be treated, and when you're talking to customers, you should treat them the same way, like you would want to be treated as well. Turn over to page 4 in your book. And we talked about, in order to keep your existing customers but also gain new customers, you have to make sure you're leaving a positive, lasting impression with that customer. I want you to answer 5 questions. These are questions that I'm going to ask you about me, and I want you to write your answer on page 4 in the answers section. So question number 1, did I grow up in a small town or a big city? Did I grow up in a small town or a big city? Go ahead and write down your answer. Do I drive an SUV or a car? My personal vehicle is an SUV or a car. Do I live in a house or an apartment? Do I enjoy listening to rock and roll or country music? Would I prefer to stay in on a Friday night or go to a party? So what did you answer to number 1? Small town or big city?
Small town.
Small town, that's correct. Do I drive a car or SUV?
SUV.
Car. House or apartment? House. Rock and roll or country? Country. I like rock and roll too, but it's mostly country. Party or stay in? Stay in. So clearly you were able to answer those questions based on the impression I've already left on you. It's not just how you talk, but it's also your gestures, the clothes you wear, the way you smile. All of those things go into making an impression on a customer. And when we're in the business we're in, it's all about making a good impression on that customer. And keep in mind, you're not only leaving an impression of the quality customer service you're providing to the customer, but you're also leaving an impression of the company through the customer service that you are providing. That's why it's ultra important to make sure you're always leaving a good and lasting impression when you hang up that phone or walk away from that customer interaction if it's face-to-face. You should always evaluate, did I leave a good impression with that customer after that interaction? One quick story about impressions, and I didn't have to walk into the store or talk to anyone on the phone to get this impression. 2 weeks ago, I was driving home from work on a major thoroughfare in Kansas City, 3 lanes of traffic. I'm in the left-hand lane, and there's a minivan in the middle lane that keeps going faster and then stopping all of a sudden, and going faster and stopping, causing cars to try to get around this car because they don't know what it's doing, right? I pull up alongside it, and I see it's a flower company delivering flowers, and there's a kid with his cell phone on the steering wheel like this, both hands on the cell phone, not paying attention to what he's doing. I will never order flowers from that company ever, and if someone asks me for a recommendation of a flower company in Kansas City, I'm going to tell them that story because it's stuck in my mind. That's a company I will never do business with because that gentleman didn't have time to respect himself or anyone around him using his cell phone while he's driving. So it's not necessarily the interaction you have, but it's also the image you present. So a lot of us work in the communities where we do business. If you're walking out of the office and going out into your community with a logo on your shirt, keep in mind that you're representing your company. It's important also, if you live in a community and people know where you work, you're representing your company when you're out and about. So it's not necessarily, an impression doesn't always have to be left just by talking to someone over the phone or interacting with someone face-to-face. It can be those gestures that you have, and you may not even interact with the person at all. So keep that in mind. It's important to remember that you're always leaving an impression anywhere you go. In order to make a lasting impression with customers, you need to be able to control the climate. And the climate is the conversation, if it's over the phone, noise happening around you, the customer's attitude. All those things make up the climate of a customer call. If you turn over to page 5, I want you to answer a couple questions in the space there on page 5. Very simply, how does a thermostat work? Go ahead and write your answer down on page 5. How does a thermostat work? And secondly, how does a thermometer work? Who can answer how a thermometer works? Anyone? It just tells you the temperature, right? You read it on the thermometer, you can see the temperature, current temperature, that's all it does. Gentleman in the white back there, Laura? Well, how does a thermostat work? Anyone? Go ahead. It regulates, right? You can control it, correct? So when you're talking to customers over the phone, is it better to be a thermostat or a thermometer? A thermostat, because you can help regulate or influence the temperature, right? The temperature of the call. When you are acting as a thermostat, there are some important things to remember. You need to match the intensity of the customer, not their mood. So if the customer is incredibly angry about a situation they recently experienced, your job is to remain calm, be that thermostat, and influence their mood. Let them know you care, but don't get all upset and irate with them, because you're never going to solve anything if you choose to go that path. You have to match the intensity of their mood. Don't let the last call bleed into the next call. Every customer that calls your business should feel like they're the only call you've taken today. You have to forget about that last call. If it was an ugly situation, you have to forget about it and move on. And the last thing when it comes to being a thermostat on a call is you have to breathe. Remember to take a breath every now and again. That can really calm your body down. That is a helpful tip when you're dealing with customers over the phone. Just simply breathe. Simply breathe. Okay, so to demonstrate the point of being a thermostat versus a thermometer, over on page 6, think about a customer call. So when a customer calls you, what are the things during that call that you can control? Go ahead and write down on page 6 the things that you can control during a customer call. What are some examples of things you can control on a call?
Humor.
Humor, okay. Your tone.
My responses.
Your responses. I'm sorry? Attitude, your attitude.
Voice level.
Your voice level, okay. Lots of things we have control over during a call. Now I want you to think about the reverse. What are the things that you cannot control during a customer call? What are those things you cannot control?
Their mood, attitude.
The customer's mood and attitude. What else?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Okay, that's fair.
Bob's on a roll.
Can't control what they're calling about.
Absolutely. Their problem, you're not able to control their problem. Previous experience.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Spending.
Spending. Okay. Sure. What else? Yeah, I was thinking about that too. The interruptions that they may experience while they're trying to talk to you, which could be some form of noise or someone bothering them. Absolutely. Okay. So I want you to look at your list of the things that you truly cannot control, and I want you to think about them from an influence perspective. If you feel you can influence any of the items you cannot control in your list, I want you to underline it. Underline the item in your cannot control list if you feel you can influence it. Did anyone underline anything? What did you underline?
Their mood and their attitude. I've noticed that when they're yelling, if I start to speak lower, eventually their tone matches mine.
That's right. So you're influencing their attitude. Absolutely. What else? What's another example? Yeah, go ahead. Change their knowledge level
Yeah.
by educating them, right? Okay. What else? Any other examples? Their previous experience. How can you influence that? Oh, through the customer service you're providing right now, right here. Absolutely. Okay.
And their level of comfort that the problem has been rectified now that you've spoken to me.
So their level of comfort that their problem has been satisfied now that they've spoken to you because you've taken care of them. Okay, very good. Are there many things, many items in your cannot control list that you did not underline? So, yeah, go ahead.
We have a lot of Spanish speaking, so sometimes it's hard to understand even what they're saying.
True. Okay, that's valid. Yes. So she said that they have a lot of Spanish-speaking customers and it's difficult to understand, and that's an example of something you cannot control. A language barrier. Absolutely. Very true. Yeah. Unless you speak Spanish. True. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot that you really can at least influence on your cannot control list. And that's what it's all about when you're a thermostat. When you're a thermostat on the call, you're able to influence those things that you may believe you cannot control, but really you can influence them. And that's what it's all about. All right. Over on page 7, let's talk about communication. When we communicate with our customers, we do so in 2 ways. One is over the phone, and the other way is face-to-face. Two forms of communication. When you're talking to someone face-to-face, there are 3 elements that are used to convey your message: body language, tone of voice, and the actual words that you speak. Did you know that 55% of your message face-to-face is conveyed through your body language? 55% of your message is conveyed through your body language. 38% is your tone of voice when you're talking face-to-face. And the words you speak is only 7% of your message. So when you're talking to someone face-to-face, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Actions speak louder than words. And that's ever so true in a face-to-face communication situation. When you're talking to someone over the phone, clearly we remove body language because they can't see you. So we're left with tone of voice and the words that you actually speak. 82% of your message is conveyed over the phone through your tone of voice. 82% is through your tone of voice. And only 18% is the actual words you say. While body language is removed from the picture because the person calling you can't see you, does body language impact your tone of voice? What are some examples of body language that can impact your tone of voice?
Smile.
Smile. Your customer can hear it, right? What about sitting up straight versus slouching down in your chair? Oh, it's another day. Thank you for calling Feral Gas. This is Kelly. How can I help you? Right? Makes a big difference. Or side conversations. I hope you don't ever do that, but that impacts your tone of voice as well, right? You have to be mindful of your body language when you're even talking to someone over the phone because it does impact your tone of voice, which can deliver a completely different message to your customer than what you intended them to receive. Keep that in mind. If we look over on page 8, there are some additional tips here on page 8 talking about vocal quality and dead air on a call. Some additional things to think about when you're talking to someone over the phone: your tone, your pitch, your inflection, your rate, your volume. All of those things impact your tone of voice, and you need to be mindful of them when you're talking to customers on the phone. And then dead air on a call. A customer should never have to ask if you're still there. Right? So make sure you conversate with that customer. Let them know what you're doing. I'm entering your order at this moment. I'm pulling up your account to check it. Let them know what's going on so they know that you're still there and they didn't lose you. When it comes to making a great and lasting impression, where are you in the race? Are you always leaving positive impressions every time you interact with a customer? Are you most of the time? Are you some of the time? Where are you? The first step to ensuring your customer receives a good impression of your company is all about the greeting. The greeting is a very important piece of your customer service over the phone. The greeting allows your customer to make a connection with you. And if you're upbeat and excited and wearing a smile, that connection is going to be positive. That initial connection and impression is going to be a positive one. Before you can ever begin to take a call from a customer, you have to make sure that you're prepared to take care of that customer when they call. What are some things that you have to do in your job today before you can take a call from a customer? Log into your computer.
And my phone.
And your phone. You may have a phone login as well. Absolutely. What else?
Show up on time.
Oh, I got to be there on time, right? That's key. Yes, I agree. What else? Are there certain tools you need to make sure you have ready, certain applications you have to have open, a calculator, a spreadsheet? I don't know what it is in your world, but there are things you have to have ready to use and work before you ever take a call from a customer. So make sure every morning you go through that list mentally and check off the items that you know you need to have prepared and ready to service that customer before that phone rings. Once the phone rings, you are greeting that customer. And remember, this is your customer's first impression of your company. You don't know if they're an existing customer or if they're a new customer. If they're an existing customer, you need to continue that positive first impression. If they're brand new, you really need to give them a positive first impression of the company. What is your company greeting? So go ahead and write it down in the space there on page 10. Ours goes something like this. Thank you for calling Feral Gas. This is Kelly. How may I help you? When you're delivering your greeting, you need to make sure you enunciate each word clearly and don't mumble through your name. Your name in customer service greetings is the most common word that's mumbled. And that's probably the most important word that your customer needs to hear. So I want you to turn to a partner sitting next to you and deliver your customer service greeting. Make sure you enunciate and speak your name clearly. Go.
That was good. That was good.
So how did your partner do? Did you understand their name? Okay. So remember, enunciate every word and make sure you clearly speak your name. Very important pieces of your greeting. Once you ask that question, how may I help you? You immediately go into listening mode. Because at that point, the customer is going to let you know why they're calling. Some tips for listening begin on page 11. When you're talking to someone face-to-face, listening is all about reading body language as well, because we know that's 55% of the message when it's delivered. When you're talking over the phone, you don't have body language, so your listening skills become even more critical to the process. Some tips for active listening include eliminating noise. There are two forms of noise: physical, which is everything happening around you, and mental noise. Mental noise is that accident someone else almost caused you to get in this morning on your way to work. Mental noise is the grocery list you're making in your head right now to pick up on your way home from work to make supper tonight.
Putting that big TV outside after the class.
There you go.
Exactly. Mental noise is all those thoughts happening in your head that do not pertain to the situation at hand right now. And as humans, we have to try to eliminate that as much as possible. The most common form of mental noise, and Jill actually spoke about this in her speech, is thinking of your response before the person has stopped talking. How often are you guilty of trying to butt in and recommend something before the person has finished speaking? And many times when you do that, you may be off the mark because you didn't let them finish and hear their full need or their question or whatever it is they need. You have to let the person you're speaking to finish what they're expressing before you jump in and offer a solution. And your solution may be very different if you actually let them formulate, think about what it is, or go ahead and say what they say, pause for a moment, think about what you need to say, and then respond with an appropriate solution. That's the most common form of noise, mental noise. Paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is an excellent way to let the customer know they're being heard. So what I heard you tell me is, that's a great way, again, to let the customer know that you're being heard. And pacing. Pacing is simply matching the rate of speed that your customer is speaking. If you have a customer that's speaking 2,000 words a minute, they're going way, way, way fast, you need to make sure you speed up your rate of speech as well. Versus if you have someone it's a real casual day and maybe had the day off, they're not too excited about getting things done quickly, don't speak 2,000 words a minute to them, because you're going to probably make them not feel comfortable during that call. So be mindful of the rate of speech when your customer is speaking to you. To demonstrate the importance of noise, if you turn over to page 12, in active listening in general, I want you to make guesses at the 3 questions you see there on page 12. How many words per minute can we speak? How many words per minute can we speak? How many words per minute can we listen? And how many words per minute can we think? What's your guess for speak? Not quite, about 125. 125 per minute. What about listen? Any guesses? 100? Try 418. 4 times that. How many words per minute can we think? 2,000. 2,000 words per minute we can think. Clearly, this activity demonstrates that mental noise is always present. It's your job to eliminate it as much as possible when you're talking to customers over the phone. And the best way to do that is to allow the person to finish their statement before you begin thinking about your response to that person. Another important aspect of your greetings is addressing the caller. So once you have an opportunity to ask them how may I help you, at some point you're going to ask them for their name to verify their account information. Make sure you make an attempt to use their name during the call. Don't overuse it, because that can become annoying. Probably all had experiences where that happens. You heard your name too many times during a call. But at the same time, don't use it just once. I would recommend at least 2 or 3 times you should use the customer's name during the call. And use it however they introduce themselves to you. If they say, this is Kelly, I'm Kelly Bosak, then it's okay to use first name. If they introduce themselves as Mrs. Bosak, then you need to address them with their title or however they introduce themselves to you. Don't forget to use their name 2 to 3 times during the call. And barriers. We oftentimes have barriers that we don't even know about. Barriers include things like making sure your mouth is clear of anything and everything. No gum, no mints, nothing in your mouth to prevent you from communicating clearly. Anything in your mouth is a barrier to clear communication. No mumbling. Make sure your phone equipment is functioning. No side conversations. I mentioned that earlier. Hopefully none of you do that, but you shouldn't be putting a customer on hold to have a conversation with someone about something that doesn't apply to the situation you're dealing with on the phone with the customer. Repetitive noises can become annoying, like yeah, uh-oh. Did I lose my sound? Okay. And lastly, make sure that you never ever interrupt a customer. That's just rude. Don't do it. Don't ever interrupt a customer. So when it comes to ensuring that your greeting is engaging, where are you in the race to delivering a greeting that is engaging?
All right, so we're going to do a switch of the mics real quick. Let's see. Hopefully this one will work again. I'll let you unclip it. Do you want to look at it real quick? It's on. Testing. No.
That one too.
Uh-oh. Oh, that's why we have a backup.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. We're now on to the last 2 areas that we're going to discuss today. The first one is asking questions, and the last one is service selling. In terms of asking questions, and I'm on page number 14 of your workbook is where we're going to be. In terms of asking questions, how many of you have gone into a store and you kind of know what you need, but you're not 100% sure. So you're really relying on the team member of wherever you're going to kind of help you out, right? So I am an addict of Pinterest. I will admit it. How many of you have a Pinterest account? It's going to be probably, look at the men in the, I love it. Okay. Well, I'm addicted to Pinterest, and if you don't have a Pinterest account, you may know somebody that does. So that means that I have a project every other week for my husband to do. And so that means we are going into the Menards in Iowa City, Iowa, where I live, and we are talking to Clay. And we're on a first-name basis with Clay because we're in there all the time. And when we go in there, we really expect Clay to help us with what we need. But Clay's got to do some digging to be able to find out exactly what we're looking for. And Clay does this by uncovering and discovering our needs. And he uses questions. So he'll say, what's the latest project? How many shelves do you need? What type of wood are you going to be using for your shelves? Explain to me exactly what you're going to use the shelves for. So Clay is going through the process of uncovering our needs. And there's two ways that you can do that. You can ask closed-ended questions or open-ended questions, right? So what I want to do is on page number 14, we have closed-ended questions and open-ended questions. I'm going to provide to you some bullets on when closed-ended questions are appropriate, depending on what type of information you are trying to gather from your customer. So the first one that we have is closed-ended. And you can go and write this in your workbook on page 14. You've got closed-ended questions when you want a direct answer. You want a direct answer. You also use closed-ended questions for setting up some type of positive or negative frame of mind. Also, they might be opening questions in a conversation with a customer. And then finally, you're going to use some closed-ended questions for achieving closure of a persuasion. So if you are selling a product, you shared with that customer everything there is to know about that product, you may use a closed-ended question for achieving that closure of that sale. I'll give you just a couple minutes to get those down in your workbook, and then I'm going to ask you for some examples of when you would use, or example of a closed-ended question. So go ahead and write those down and then be thinking about that. All right, who wants to earn a Smartie? Who's got an example of a closed-ended question? Bob?
How much oil would you like today?
How much oil would you like today? Direct, one answer, right? Very good. Anyone else have an example of a closed-ended question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Do you have heat? Very important. Very good. Yes, ma'am? Do you rent or own your tank? Very good. Very good. Great examples of closed-ended questions. Now here is when you might use an open-ended question. Maybe it's a follow-on to a closed-ended question that you asked earlier. So if you ask the customer, how many widgets do you use daily? That's a closed-ended question, right? An open-ended question is leading on to that to get further information. Tell me about when your widget use may increase. That gets them going and tells you certain circumstances when their usage might go up. To find out about a customer's motivation. Why did they call? What do they need? And that kind of lends into the last one is finding out the customer's needs. So I'll give you a couple minutes to jot those down, and then I'll ask for some examples of open-ended questions. Okay. Who's got an example of an open-ended question?
Well, if you're trying to sell them something, how do you see yourself using?
How do you see yourself using? Tell me about how you use the product that I'm selling. Tell me how you use a widget. Okay? Great one. Thank you. Bob?
When purchasing your new equipment, are you looking for satisfaction or price?
Very good. What are you expecting? What are you looking for? It's a great one. You can't know what the customer wants unless you ask them. You don't know how to meet and eventually exceed their expectations if you don't know what they are. So when you got the customer on the phone, you never want to assume that they're only interested in price. That's our biggest mistake we make in the customer experience industry, is assuming what the customer is interested in. The first thing out of your mouth, like Bob said, should be, what are you looking for in a propane company? What do you expect out of your propane company? Now you know what they want, and now you can meet that expectation and exceed it. It's a good one. Any other examples of open-ended questions? Those were great. Any questions about asking questions? Okay. All right. On page number 15, we're talking about jargon. So just as countries have their own language, so do companies. It's how we communicate with one another. It's how we are efficient in our communications. And we use them all the time. I'm sure your company has just as many acronyms as the next company. The problem with using jargon when you're working with your customers is that when you use a word, for instance, CSM, if I were to use that word with a customer, the customer is so focused on trying to figure out what CSM means that the rest of the time I'm wowing them with what I'm sharing with them and educating them on, they're still trying to figure out what CSM means. So you have to be very mindful when you're working with your customers to eliminate the jargon as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a sentence, and in that sentence, I want you to pick out the jargon. I'll read it a couple times. So this is my sentence. Mr. Jones, I will put a case on your 360-degree view and let our OS know you have a red tag on your IP because it was OOG. You're welcome. All right, I'll read it one more time. Mr. Jones, I will put a case on your 360-degree view and let your OS know you have a red tag on your IP because it was OOG. Who can pick out some of the jargon that I shared there? Bob?
All the initials.
Everything I abbreviated. You got it.
You sound like my kid.
Yeah. Sound like I'm texting or something, right? Right. Yep. So we had IP, we had OS, OOG, out of gas, 360-degree view, that's what we call our account in Feral Gas. OS was the operations supervisor. But see, you guys are, I mean, if you use that with your customers, they are totally lost, especially with customers that have never had propane before. Can you imagine how they're like, what? What just happened? I mean, they literally, when you've got new customers they've never had propane before, and you start throwing out all this jargon, they are lost. It's intimidating enough to move into a house probably and have a totally different fuel source that's going to heat your home and take care of your family. So when you've got a new customer on the phone, it's even more important to make sure that you're not throwing all this jargon around. Well done, well done. So, as Kelly and I have been doing, I asked you, where are you at in the race for asking the right questions to determine the customer's needs. Very important. And if I can leave you with one item here from this section, really, as a customer care representative, as a service technician, as a bulk driver, anytime you interact with your customers, ask them that important question. What do you expect from your propane provider? What do you expect from your service provider? If I know that, I've got all the power in the world as the customer care rep, as the driver who's out talking with the customer. I've got all the power. Very, very important. All right. If you want to turn with me in your books, please. Oh, on page number 15, I want to do this activity real quick. Write down some of the jargon that you have in your business. So page 15, you can write down some of your company's words and then maybe some words that you would use instead. I'll give you a couple minutes to fill that out on page number 15. All right. The next and last section that we have is service selling. And I want you to think about what motivates you to shop where you shop or to buy the products that you buy repeatedly. What motivates you to do that? Is it price? Is it convenience? Or is it something more? My guess is that if you're shopping at the same store over and over again, buying the same product over and over again, it has a little bit more to do with than just price or convenience. There's a bigger reason. An example I want to share with you is we have a small grocery store in our area that's got the best meat department around. And I can't cook. To save my life out here this morning, I thought they were making the pancakes like literally on the grill. Didn't realize they probably had a griddle or something. That's how I don't cook. So when I go to the meat department, I rely on the person that's behind the counter to help me. So the place where we go get our meat is not the cheapest in town, and it certainly is not convenient to where I live. But I go there because the gentlemen behind the counter are taking time to find out what my needs are. They're asking me what I'm going to use the meat for, what marinade, they suggest a side, they use my name when they're talking to me. They go the extra step, and the pride that they have in their work is unbelievable. That is so attractive as a consumer. If you think about where you go shopping all the time, and if you go up to somebody and they've got so much pride in what they're doing, it makes you feel good when you walk out of that store. They're excited about being at work. If you're going to do something, you might as well do it to the best of your ability. Jill spoke about that earlier today. Very, very important. So when you start going to places and figure out why you go there, showing pride in your work, sharing with your customers the features and benefits they have, that, my friends, is service selling. And it's so easy to do. We need to uncover the customer's needs to truly figure out how we are going to get them to come back over and over again. What I'd like you to do is on page number 17, pride is very important, and being proud of where you work and being proud of the work that you do gives you confidence. So when you're at the point where you're ready to ask for the sale or ask for that business, if the customer knows you have pride in what you're doing and you're proud of the product that you're selling, it's way more attractive to the customer, and it's way easier for you to have confidence in asking for the business. So what I'd like you to do is on page number 17, go ahead and list out some of the items that you are proud of as far as where you work or the work that you do or the benefits or the features that you're able to offer your customers. So go ahead and take a little bit to fill that out. All right, who'd like to share a couple things that they're proud of? Yes, ma'am?
Stanford Fuel has 24-hour, 7-day service, and we train and maintain the best service department in Connecticut.
Well, there you go. So the company she works for has 24/7 customer service, and they also deliver the best customer service anywhere in Connecticut.
And I stand by it.
And she stands by them. What others do you have out there?
Presentation,
Presentation.
demeanor,
Demeanor. You're proud of all those things, how your company portrays itself. And you? You got it. Ma'am in the back? The longevity. You got it. That is definitely something to be proud of. How long has your company been there? The tenure of the employees you have. If you do me a favor, when you get back to your office, count up the number of years that your employees have collectively together. That is so impactful to a customer. If I can call up Kelly and say, hey, Kelly, guess what? When you do business with ABC Propane, there is over 100 years of experience taking care of you and your family. That is powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. It's a great one to share with your customers. What else you got? Yes, ma'am. You got it. Working for Ray Murray, being able, yeah, a round of applause, most definitely. What do you do for your customers? Do you have community events? Do you sponsor a baseball team? Do you sponsor a t-ball team? Think of those things. Customers love to know that they're doing business with a company that has a giving heart. You got it. Now, the last thing I want to pose here, I know we're running on time, so I'm going to speed up here, but how often do you share these things that you're proud of with your customers? Just think about that. How often do you take time to let them know how proud you are to work where you work? They love to hear it. Love to hear it. All right, the last section that we have is talking about features and benefits. This is really important because we need to find out what motivates the customer to go where they go and to buy what they buy. A feature is a fact, right? A feature is a fact. A benefit is truly what the customers are buying. So a feature is a fact and the benefits are what the customers are buying. By sharing the benefits of your company, of your product, of your service, you are now instilling value in your product. So on pages number 18 and 19, there are some examples of some benefits and features. ABC Propane is an industry leader in propane safety. Okay, great. What does that mean for me? Your family gets a worry-free energy source. We had one of our guests mention they've got 24/7 emergency service. Okay, what does that mean to me?
At 2:30 in the morning, Christmas, if your heat goes out, someone will be out there within 2 hours.
Exactly, a benefit right there. So you can tell the customer, we have level pay, we have emergency service. You can tell them all day long, but unless they understand how that impacts them, it means absolutely nothing to them. So going that extra step to educate your customer on your benefits is going to serve you well when working with your customers. So what I'd like you to do on page number 20, just to end, before we get done, take a quick minute to list out some of the features you have with your company. So our example, 24/7 emergency service. Fantastic. What does that mean to the customer? So you list your feature and then list your benefit. All right, who's got a feature they'd like to share? Bob.
I'll go with 24-hour service and benefit the reliability.
You got it. Jeff, did you have one?
Well, it's pretty much like it's one of the in-house, so you're always talking.
Perfect. So their 24/7 is in-house. So it's not an answering service. It's an actual employee of the company that he works for. So you're actually talking to somebody that has buy-in, is dedicated to that company. Perfect.
In a business since 1945, you can have many employees 25 years or longer.
Perfect. So we've been in business for 45 years. Okay, wonderful. What does that mean? It means you've got some employees that have been here 25 years that are going to take care of you, that love taking care of you, that get excited to take care of you. Wonderful. I want to share with you a quote, and I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Maya Angelou, very, very famous lady, God rest her soul. One of the most important quotes I think she ever had was, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That, at the end of the day, is the essence of the customer experience. How did they feel? When they hung up the phone with Matthew, did they feel inspired? Did they feel comfortable? Did they feel excited about doing business with, I can't read that far. Peconic propane. I totally probably messed that up. But do they feel comfortable and excited? It's how they feel. It's a wonderful quote. So, as a takeaway, Kelly and I really hope that you've taken some tools from this session, can apply them. Our hope is that you discovered tools today to put you at the lead of the race in terms of the competitive advantage. If you're not in the lead, hopefully gave you some tools to eventually win the race in the competitive advantage and to also win your customer loyalty. These workbooks are yours. You can take them, write in them some more, brainstorm some ideas where we didn't have time. Kelly and I, on behalf of Kelly and I, thank you very, very much. Who had the most Smarties? I think it's between Bob and probably, how many did you have, Nikki? How many do you have, Bob?
10.
Ooh, we have a winner.
Ah, Bob is the Smarty Pants of the day.